Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories. So we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm really excited today. I have my dear friend Rachel Randolph. Rachel, a couple years ago, came to me and told me she was going to sell everything she owned and live in a van and travel across the US. And I thought she was a little bit adventurous, a little bit crazy, bit of both. But I've been really excited to watch her on her journey. And so Rachel's joining us from her van today in Arizona. So, Rachel, welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. I love our conversations and I love being able to share them with your audience.
Now, for those who are just tuning in for the first time or just catching up, uh, normally I have a process I follow. I have standard questions. The thing is, Rachel is not standard in any way, shape, or form, and she's one of those bright lights and energy in a human form that just inspires people. So I wanted to, first of all, I'll apologize because Rachel and I had a very fascinating conversation that we forgot to record. But we're going to try and pull some of that fun stuff out. I think that the heart of what Rachel and I talk about most of the time is communication. Is that fair, Rachel?
Yeah, communication and then my unique approach to it, which is introspection.
And I think what I love about Rachel's approach in particular is, a lot of people are looking for that quick fix. They're looking for the band-aid. And Rachel's one of the only people I know who's teaching, and I think introspection, it's more inward bound. But the reality is any external skills you learn, any external things you're picking up, if you haven't done the internal work, you're gonna warp whatever tool you bring in. Is that fair, Rachel?
Yeah, I think it gets naturally warped. And something that just was inspired to point out is, and we could just go right here. How do if I'm listening to this for the first time and and you say, most people are looking for the quick fix to blank. The question I would be asking myself is, am I that person? How do I know that I'm not that person? Because psychologically, I want to protect my ego and my ego thinking that I'm somebody who is not part of the club of somebody who I'm not that person looking for the quick fix. I'm here. I do the work. I listen to the podcasts. I read the books. I take the seminars. I'm not looking for the quick fix and not really reflecting on how that plays out. Now, would I say, is somebody listening to this and that person? I don't know, but I think that's a really perfect place to start that introspective aspect and inquiry on, am I that person that's always looking for the quick fix? Why did I listen to this podcast in the first place? I love Jeff. I stumbled upon it. I'm interested in communication. Wherever that lands is where it lands, and then how that unfolds, and then following that line is the point of self-inquiry and introspection, and then how that plays out into how we interpret the world and perceive others and then ultimately communicate what we're experiencing. Words are the last thing to happen, but all of that thought can start right now. Am I that person?
But I find it fascinating when people just habitually do things, they don't think about why they're doing it. And sometimes the question, why am I doing this, is enough to really change a person.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, and I think that it should be done for everything. Why you order the type of coffee you order, why you choose the coffee shop you like, it all can just yeah, I spend a lot of time in coffee shops, so, obviously, a lot of these questions just start within my immediate surroundings. Why did I order this coffee? Why didn't I have more of a conversation with the barista? uh Habit from ordering the coffee, black coffee for here in a small mug so I can get refills with oat milk because I like oat milk over almond milk, even though oat milk is for baby cows to get fat. So it's like, I want all of the things that I think and do to have legs. And I've spent a lot of time at nauseum questioning myself and without parameters, which is kind of why I think that limiting beliefs or limitations are really useful as long as we understand to question them and like, did I put this here or did society put this here? That's just a useful thing because I do need stopping points personally on when that self inquiry stops. Otherwise, I go into a really unhealthy mental place where nothing is okay and nothing is satisfying. um, so I would say the caveat to self-inquiry is like for as many benefits, everything has a light and a dark side, right? So the light is the benefits of understanding oneself in order to express oneself clearly. And the dark side of it was because it would be that your tendrils go so deep you never come up for air.
And I think there are people that don't want to open those doors because they don't want to, explore the old boxes in their brain and get past the pain. And as you said, did I put that there or did society? And it's amazing when you figure out what's yours and what's not yours, you
Yeah.
can declutter your brain.
Yeah, I wouldn't even begin to understand where some things are more painful to go to that are conditioned from society and some things are more painful to go to that you put there yourself, and I have no idea. For me personally, the most pain that I experience is opening those own self initiated, self designed traps, mental traps and limitations for myself. And then again, like, is this a healthy limitation? Does this keep me away from never acting on anything, never expressing myself because I'm too afraid of everything? There is a utility for fear and limitations. And again, that's a questioning thing of, is this hurting me or helping me? And having that practice of everything being under that kind of just initial automatic question. Is this good for me or bad for me? Is this alignment or not? Is this in my flow? Is this helping me in the long term, but painful and uncomfy in the short term? Is this uncomfy in the short term or pleasurable in the short term, but has negative side effects that I can foresee just because my imagination works that way? And then that comes into the play of how we use our imaginations to create our realities. Like, I can imagine this type of future for myself. What am I doing right now that is confronting the things that I want to have out of my way, the obstacles that my past put there? Okay, take care of the past through memory. That's just, time isn't linear like that. We just experience it that way for organizational purposes. And it's very useful, right?
Yeah.
But our memories are happening right now and my future projections are happening right now. And as I talk, am I moving myself in a direction that is a new future, a future that I design, things that I believe in? Am I saying and articulating what's true for me and moving the needle forward in, we can just call it, a simple one is authenticity. Am I moving my trajectory, my life trajectory in an inauthentic or authentic direction right now and right now and
And
right
how
now
about now?
and how about now? And every single moment is stepping up to that plate of, I wasn't authentic 2 seconds ago because I said that. The next time I'm presented with that opportunity to say something, to speak up in a meeting, to send an email with my actual thoughts, albeit appropriate and respectful, those are all little, I call them with my clients choice points of pausing long enough to make a different choice, because that's really what people go after when they want something to feel good or a quick fix, is to be able to stop long enough to make a different decision.
And I like that because I see a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this many, many times. You react immediately, and I have these conversations with my kids. You react immediately, and then you regret it, and then it's like, okay, how do I undo that? And sometimes you just need to pause for a second and think about it.
Took a nice pause to think about it.
And I think, I come from the world. I used to teach sales, and the silence, like, I think a good friend is somebody you can sit in silence with. And
Yeah.
more importantly, a good relationship with yourself is when you can sit in silence. But in a lot of communication, it's like whoever lets the silence linger loses, and people want to fill the silence.
So my mind immediately goes into why is that? Not, I don't think things like that are helpful to have an answer to, and that somebody listening would be like, "Oh, well, Rachel said this, so now I think that." That's so contradictory to my belief system and morals around introspection and thinking. So, if that is such a trigger point, the silence of most people, any things that we're saying that are most people, I want anyone to think, am I that way? And if so, the next question is why? And then do some digging into that, because if it triggers you, there's something there for you to discover. I think that's just how we can interpret those things. And so when it comes to the pause, and whoever lets the silence happen loses, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Is that what you're afraid of? Does it make you uncomfortable for a silence? If so, why? Did you do it or did somebody else do it? If you did it, why did you do it? Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to collect that last thought. Maybe you need time before you respond accurately. Maybe the pause is actually a really useful, beautiful, enjoyable thing for you and the other person. Is it possible to reframe that way? So, that process can be done with just about anything with communication: volume, tact, inflection, word usage, semantics, grammar,
Mm.
tone, pacing. What works for me and why? And I think that, again, introspective communication coaching is about finding those natural ways of communicating in the world that can make it easier to be what's authentic to you.
And authentic is one of my favorite words. And I want to ask you a question that I think will bring a little more Rachel out. You once described what you do like being a soccer coach. Would you mind if we talked about that analogy? Because, trying to explain to people what Rachel does, um, I mean, my words are limited, and it's just it's a thing of beauty to watch Rachel in action, but it's really hard to sometimes explain it. So I love your soccer analogy. Let's explore that.
When I think since you're giving me the space to explain a little bit more, people will be like, "What the fuck, soccer?" So when I first started my coaching practice, I looked around at what everybody else was doing, kind of preachy, kind of just using whatever they had taught them to do, and doing it, and no one really took an observational stance to communication. It's such an emotional thing. It's such a powerful thing. Everyone wants to be the persuasive, controlled person in the room, and yet no one was really explaining or deep diving into the makeup and structural aspects of being that calm person in the room, that leader, that emotionally regulated communicator, etc. And so I was like, I need to look at this a different way, because I want the world to look different. I don't want it to be about persuading people and marketing manipulation and communicating just out of this kind of lofty, ambiguous, we are all connected in one perspective. There's something happening in between. And so I sought after finding an analogy that would accurately describe me as the coach and having skills to teach and value to add and whatnot, and the personal experience of the person doing the thing, which is communicating. So I was like, okay, well, I used to listen to a lot of sports radio early on, and because I really like the way that sports coaches talk about saying things in the locker room, and if they're a good coach, they know that weak moment after losing a game can make or break the team in the next game. It's an opportunity to build them up and have them look inwardly. Like really good sports coaches are fantastic minds. And so I started coming up with, or telling people that, okay, communication is so ambiguous. It's this big thing. It's this thing that has a lot of interpretation, and I personally don't think there's enough communication coaches for the thing that it is and the need that it has. But that aside, the way that I coach is a soccer coach, as in I view communication as a sport. And that removes a bit of the emotion at first, so the overanalyzers can understand it and the over emotional can understand it. It's that happy middle ground of something tangible that we can all relate. And so, fine, now whatever direction we need to go in, somebody who's really emotional, now we learn the skills for emotional regulation before we go into the logic and analyzing. Somebody very logical and analytical that has trouble expressing their emotions when it comes to communication, we'll start with analyzing the skills, the mechanics, the technique, the this and that. And we'll kick the ball of communication back and forth inside the session. We don't leave a single session without talking about a concept, then practicing it with me telling them to do it, or say it out loud, or practice it, or give me their own interpretation of it. And then the last bit of each session, regardless of how long somebody's going to work with me, is me and that person kicking back the ball, kicking back and forth the skill inside the session of that skill. So for example, there's one NLP technique or Lazarus technique that I use, which is just a distillation of an abstract idea into a specific idea. That's it, in its most raw, virgin type of explanation. So you can go from abstract in explaining something, transportation, to Mazda 3 hatchback that's white with leather seats, specific.
Yeah.
So when we're going from ideas and wanting to express ourselves, I might ask you a question. What's your favorite thing about your 10-year-old son? Okay, maybe a lot of things come up. And then you could either tell me that paragraph, oh, but maybe we don't have a lot of time. So then maybe you could go into a sentence or two. Okay, well, maybe we just have a second, but I really wanted to know. Now you give me the word. Your favorite thing is honesty. My son is honest. Bam, done. And you distilled from this abstract, overthought, lots of things and lots of information coming to you because you know your son and you love your son and you want to talk him up, and you could probably talk for hours about your 10-year-old son, given what I know about you. And
I do, yep.
But what is relevant, what's needed right now, and what serves the communication that we're having inside of this podcast right now. And it would probably be either the sentence or just the word. So that's just an example of us kicking the ball back and forth of communication, or a skill that's useful towards communication, in a very tangible way.
And honestly, Rachel, that was fabulous. Thank you. I think what I take away from that, and maybe that's why it's hard to explain, most coaching programs are one size fits all. You know, you either fit in the shoebox or we cram you in. Whereas you're literally meeting the person where they are and finding out what they need and then moving forward. So that there's never a common starting point. You
Never.
know, you're not treating everyone, okay, well, hey, it's not like a big fitness class where everybody shows up and we're going to start doing downward dog or something and hopefully nobody gets hurt. You're bringing them in as private guide and saying, okay, here's where you are today, or let's figure it out. And
Yeah.
then you help them figure out where they want to go. Every journey is completely different. Is that fair?
Because everyone it is different anyways. Like, even if the analogy of soccer keeps going, like the skill level of somebody that comes to me
Yeah.
is going to be different. What is the common denominator, like I've said, is this psychographic of someone who has gone through the ringer with personal development, therapy, inner work to the best of their ability. They understand, and to some extent, their patterns. They're very self-aware, very analytical and self-analytical. Or even if they're emotional, they have this thing in their head that when they do something they know they don't want to do with communication anymore, there's this voice that says, I don't want to do that anymore. Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? I
Yeah.
know what to do, but I wasn't able to do it. And then they might spin their wheels for some amount of time. And then maybe communication happens later because they did think about it and identify that, or communication never happens because they're too afraid of that next step or confrontation. And so it's taking that awareness that they've already cultivated, spent many years, that deserve lots of respect and honoring, and leveraging it. And that's why I do it the way that I do it, is because I want to honor the work that somebody's already put in. And I want to meet them where they are in as much detail and intimacy as possible, because I respect and honor and want to leverage and make somebody feel amazing because they spent that time. They've gone after it in some way because they know already that there's a better way of being, communicating, living, following their dreams, being more authentic at work, finding a good
Awesome.
partner, any of these symptoms.
I'm going to cut Rachel off here, and not because you guys don't want to hear more, but I'm going to make you earn her next conversation with me. So, Rachel, I'm going to pause the recording because I want to thank you for being on the show. And I will make sure anybody who wants to hear more is going to hear more, but they're going to have to earn it. So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say the most impactful way they could get in touch with me is through my LinkedIn and interacting with my writing. I write from first person communication perspectives, or this kind of what's possible from the magic of communication. Again, kind of honoring the pain point. Like, I don't know what the pain is because you know the pain. And if you interact with me, if you contact me, that's the focus point, completely on you. And that can be built trust because you can see that I'm not going after just some low hanging manipulative marketing fruit. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that when it's like, when it really does work that way, but I just chose to do it a different way. So interacting with me on my LinkedIn, my website, www.yourspeccoach.com, SPECCOACH.com.
Awesome. Well, Rachel,
Um,
thank you
my
for
web-
being authentically Rachel. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jeff. I always love our talks and the space that you provide for me to do what I do.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.